Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is episode 75. Kairo or Pulse. It's either one or either. So Kairo's its real name. There's a remake of this, isn't there?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I believe so. I don't think I've seen it though.
Me neither. Not yet anyway. Okay. So hiya. Tonight we have a full house. So we got Jess.
Hello.
We got Larry.
Hello.
We got Ewan.
Hello.
Normally, Dan's he's the fifth boner, as we like to call him. He's normally in the group chat. I'm not sure if he is tonight, so we will soon see. What we all been up to then? I've not been doing a lot really. Not to talk about. It's just not really done anything other than work. Jess, I know you've been a busy bee.
Yeah, working, enjoying the nice weather that we've had.
Yeah.
So mainly just taking all the time I can to sit outside and play Animal Crossing.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
And what was that on the Switch? I
Yeah.
presume. Yeah. Larry, I know you won't. Would you? Yeah, you were with us on the last podcast.
Yeah.
Larry was.
Yeah, Evil Dead, right?
It was Evil Dead. Yes, I still haven't seen the slightly extended one, so I'm looking forward to watching that and talking about it. Yeah.
Yes. I haven't not too much. I mean, more prepping for filming in July. Hurt my fingers bad.
Oh, gosh.
I was in hospital the other day for like 3
How'd you
hours
do that?
waiting.
Will you punch people in the pub again, Lawrence?
Larry.
No. The actual way it happened doesn't sound remotely at all cool in any way, and it just so you'd think to yourself, have you done that? Changing sheets on the bed, and
Excellent.
usually just grab one hand, whip, and it was like obviously stuck under something or like stuck on something. So where I pulled it, just took my two fingers in the other direction and has bad bruising.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's me all done.
I try and avoid changing bed sheets. I
Same,
do help.
I will now.
I help out occasionally if I get myself on a right tangle. Quite often. Sometimes I end up in the duvet.
Yeah, I do that quite a lot as well. Yeah.
And then you can't get out.
Yeah. Well, I can get out, but yeah, I've never had
It depends how late at night it is.
That's true.
So what you been up to, Ewan?
Just been a bit ill, really. Got this cold last week. I managed to get away for my birthday, which was on Monday, so that was quite nice to have people around and stuff like that. But I was still sort of supping the lemsip while I was sort of enjoying my presents. So it's just stuff
Nice.
like that.
I did see on Instagram you were like in my neck of the woods, like nearby. Anyway, you weren't.
Yeah. So I was in sort of this place called Hamble, near Southampton.
Yeah.
Lovely place. It's my parents sort of got it for retirement, really. That place, but I try and take advantage of it as much as I can.
Oh, we could do a Bones episode from there. It's quite haunted in Hamble.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, there's a lot of old people there, so I assume that's correct.
A lot of new spirits.
Yeah.
Right, so 2001, this film. So it's a bit of an old one. I didn't play too well on Shudder, to be honest. It looked a bit grainy at times. Japanese film. I'm all right so far. Directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Have I destroyed that? Well, I've never heard of him anyway. So, so it's 119 minutes long. So, yeah. Consider I didn't understand it from start till finish. That's a long 2 hours. Box office of 318,000, I think. I couldn't actually see what it cost to make, so I got no idea. I'm not even going to say the actors' names because there's no point. No point. Rotten Tomatoes, what we thinking?
This one's another tricky one because I have a personal view, but I don't know what.
I reckon it might be in the 60s,
I think it'll be lower.
Really?
Oh no! Well, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna say 50s.
I'll say
Okay.
70s to be different.
Oh,
Okay.
Jess. Jess is right. 74.
Oh, that's busy.
Oh, okay.
Let's guess.
Nice.
So-
nice.
I'll just bring up the old what's it? Where have I put it? Where's it gone? Right. Okay. After a college student commits suicide, several people living in Tokyo start witnessing terrifying visions transferred across the internet. Now, it's at that moment I get confused. So I've written down there's two stories going on. One about the guys working at the kind of plant, is it? A lot of employees, and they're working on a new disc or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's very old. It's all on dial-up and stuff as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then there's an economics student, and there's a story going on about him. He's the blondish, long-haired lad. Is that right? And the next thing I wrote was shit's music. So there's music going on in the film from time to time. I'm being a bit critical here, and it slightly annoyed me and things. And it's at this point where I kind of need you guys to explain what the fuck was going on. So, because I just don't know. He put a disc in, and there's someone watching him on screen. I don't know. Did anyone actually get killed by the spirits? I couldn't work that out. Did they? Or did they? They all commit suicide, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, this is
Yeah.
implied. That's what it's implied. There's
And
only
that-
one that's mysterious, where you kind of think, "What's gone on?" Because it's only like his
Yeah.
echo left on the wall.
And then
Yeah.
it's like the Uranus software. You install. So you install this Uranus, and someone's watching you. It was Uranus, wasn't it? Was it? I think it was.
I can't remember. but-
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
It made me giggle. You know me. So, and it's from there really that I haven't got a clue what's going on. And then at the end, it gets even weirder. So, I would love you to explain because I'll probably enjoy it more. Didn't buy this, so it was on Shudder. So I'm grateful for that.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, Larry. I just didn't know what was going on. And the
It
music
doesn't
was
make it. It
terrible.
doesn't make it easy. To be fair, it's very much a, as I would call it, like a. I've watched it now multiple times, a few times, and I definitely on the first time watching, there was a lot that I didn't understand what was going like at all in some scenes.
Yeah. So
But yeah.
Jess, did you actually understand it? Come on, are you
I
with
can-
me? Did you get what was
Yeah.
going on, Jess, at all?
Not really.
It's a long 2 hours, isn't it? If you don't know what's going on, and
Well,
I couldn't even like do something else and watch it, like because it had subtitles. My Japanese isn't great,
No.
so I had to watch it and read it and concentrate, and I still didn't get it.
Well,
So-
I mean, this is the interesting thing with that film is that I think I was kind of thinking more, again, favorite word, interpretively when I was.
we're not
watching
having
the
that
film.
on this
So
podcast
I was sort of looking at the sort of like almost from a thematic point of view in terms of like, because obviously this is made in 2001 during dial-up internet, which is a stage of the internet I have very little memory of. I mainly hear it from people who are slightly older than me
It
about
was
the
quite slow.
noise, the
Yeah.
noise it made and how slow it was and everything
Yeah.
like that. And you can kind of see how, I mean, if I'm honest, I was more interested by this film than I was engaged by it.
Okay.
In the sense that I quite enjoyed how prescient it was and how kind of it foreshadows how the internet came to dominate our everyday lives, sort of thing. Because obviously these ghosts, phantoms, monsters, whatever you want to call them, are kind of born out of the internet, and they kind of inspire depressing thoughts to the living. And it's sort of I feel like it's almost a message on saying that similar to what people are saying now in terms of like social media and everything, and that it's meant to connect people, but really it sort of disconnects people. And I feel like even though social media was nowhere near existing at that time, it kind of foreshadows that in a strange way. And that's why I find the film quite interesting. The reason why I didn't find it engaging as much is because I feel like I just didn't really know any of the characters, really. I didn't really know who they were. I just knew what their function was within the sort of overall narrative. I really enjoyed how it was shot. It was like really sort of grim and sort of grimy, and it was sort of, I'm not entirely sure if I've seen a film shot like that before, where it was just it's very depressing in a weird way. And I think that's part of, it's an almost a dystopian atmosphere where it's like, and it sort of builds up that kind of depression that the living eventually feel.
I felt it as the film went on.
Well, so there's hint like throughout the portion, like the course of the film, it's insinuated that the spirits are basically using the internet in order to communicate with the real world. And there's the theme of the film is essentially like being alone and wanting to connect again with the whole forms of the internet, and how at that point it was these first steps to being instantaneous messages across, you didn't have to meet up and stuff and all that. And the program and software almost enables this to kind of start. But what I quite like about the film is...
It was Larry frozen.
Are we?
Oh.
Have we been muted?
Very
sorry, Larry.
Unendingly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
we got muted for a minute, Larry.
What?
Yeah, you're back now. You're back.
Oh,
now.
okay, cool. Yeah, basically, the kind of connection with that about the afterlife, in that no one really knows obviously what it is, and with these spirits, it's the sense of connection, but then it's almost the spirits feel that same loneliness and is there in connect, like being able to connect to the real world. And for the people then ended up taking their lives afterwards and wanting to feel that connection again, is that it's juxtaposed to the real world of feeling loneliness, when in fact there are so many of us that could connect. And it's through this that people only really want to connect through that extra, what's in the afterlife, what comes next. And it's almost like gets portrayed in this as almost like a drug, or a curse almost, that once you delve into that world and put the red tape around the room in order to connect and actually see a ghost and be able to one-to-one interact, it's almost like a curse that gets brought on, that then people just can't shake, that they want to experience that again or go over to that realm. But I do agree. The reason I like it is because I like the style, and I think the style works really well with this. I do agree that it is long, and it's not a film. I think its horror in the film is very much way slower. It's very, oh, did you catch that? Or, oh, look in the corner of the room there. Do you see something just coming out of the shadows a bit to then cut away? And so it's always very much implied horror of what's going on. But yeah, it's one of the reasons I like it. But I can equally understand that it wouldn't. It's not like oh my god, this is a big time horror like Ju-on or Ringu, which I think do it better.
Although, it's like that's what I find interesting about the film, is that it does follow a lot of the sort of aspects of like J horror, like The Grudge. The Grudge is a very interesting sort of structurally and narratively, and I think Pulse is a similar case where it tries to explore something in quite an interesting way. But I feel like Kurosawa doesn't. He sort of loses grip by the end, at least. I think.
The ending's a bit.
It was okay, but I feel like he couldn't think of anything else other than the world is ending, And I feel it's a slight spoiler, but like towards the ending, I thought the CG plane was a bit overkill. Just sort of crashing and CGI fire just everywhere.
It tries to like shove home the point really hard, like instead of just leaving it again with that lovely ambiguous, which would fit the tone of like you could say that, but then have it just silent of damn, like there's no one. Instead, it goes for that Hollywood kind of just quick end of like plane going on fire, and you're just like, whoa, But
I didn't get any of it. The end. I don't know where everyone went. Why they went away? I don't know. I was just the last hour. I was totally lost. I was totally lost.
Well, I think it's because everyone gets affected by what they're seeing on the computer, basically, and they get these thoughts of loneliness mainly, and then they thought, oh, I might as well drift away with these spirits in wherever. And I think that happens more and more often to the point where there's no one left and everyone just wants to be inside this.
I didn't have dial up in 2001. I know a lot of people didn't.
But again, I think this is a slightly dystopian situation. You can kind of see a bit of when I this sounds basic, but I looked on his Wikipedia page before this, and apparently he's called the David Cronenberg of Japan. And you can kind of see elements of Cronenberg in terms of the elements of horror mixing with technology and how things are advancing and reality is kind of skewered because of what we're being given on screen and stuff like that. And again, that sort of fits into the whole interesting angle of the film. And again, you get certain weird images like one of my sort of things that I get scared most in certain films are just like weird shapes and shadows. I mean that sort of thing that tends to scare me, and you've got quite a few of those, and it's quite sort of unsettling. Although I didn't find myself too far behind the sofa, I have to say, but it was more sort of eerie and weird and I suppose unsettling, especially in terms of, again, I'll go back to how it's shot, because again, it's so sort of bleak. Like there's nothing sort of like it starts off like raining and just like depressing, and even when it's sunny, it looks horrible. And I think that's a really interesting way to shoot. And I'm not sure if I've seen anything like that except maybe in sort of like, I don't know, there's certain examples in sort of post cinema, but it's kind of like, again, it's that sort of dinginess, which is quite interesting.
I specifically like that scene. The reason I go back to this film is that just even over one scene, which I think is shot so well, just personally, I think it's, for me, I like the ambiguity of the horror of it, because you're just like, what's going on? But when the matey tries to uncover what happened with the friend and doing the tape and going through the hallway and just having that woman come out of the shadows and start almost like air walking, and then, you know, just the subtlety of over the sofa looking, no legs, and then just the slow pan over and then cut, almost like what happens after. Anything that you can come up in your head will make it, you know.
I would have thought he'd have been teared from limb to limb, you know, but did any of the ghosts actually kill anyone? So maybe she just went boo.
Well, it's more, I think the film's trying to go for like the spirits themselves, like how when you view them in like the corners or shadows on the computers, where that's what it's going with the scares. But with there's more about they're not trying to kill people.
They're not evil spirits. Then
it's that again. It's kind of left. Again, this is only a personal view, but I feel it's left ambiguous because you have it where these ghosts are basically trying to connect with these people, but it could be for a sinister reason. It could be to get more people over. It could be that they feel lonely, and which the film heavily does imply that these characters are almost disconnected with each other.
What was the internet got to do with it?
It's just it's to do with the coding of with his disc he's been working on. It's almost like a doorway. And almost in that sense of like kind of, at least I take from it like a very Lovecraftian
very
sense
slow doorway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pretty fair,
internet.
never
Yeah. But I feel like at the time this film was made, it was almost kind of what Ewan said earlier. I think that when it was made, they had envisionments for what the internet of like, oh, where could this go? And obviously at the time with technical development, but it's funny looking back at it now and seeing how much people are connected and depend on social media now.
The way it was filmed reminded me of Fear.com.
I haven't seen it.
No, it's terrible.
Fear.com. I think I
Yes.
remember Fear.com. That was
Just
while
the
ago.
griminess
Fear.com.
and like the age of it, and just I think we did it on the podcast once.
Graininess and
yeah. But Fear.com's not great at all.
No,
It's a bit of an odd one. We won't do it. We won't do that. We won't do that. One's enough. So Jess, like before we move on, because we're 20 minutes in and I still don't know what's going on. What did you get from what did you take from it, or what did you understand?
Well, not a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't.
Did you watch it properly? Did you?
Yeah.
Or were you doing the washing up?
I watched it properly. You know, proper horror film. I had all the lights off. The only bit because the bit where he goes into that red door with the red tape, it's quite early on, and at that point in the film, I didn't know if there was going to be like jump scares or anything. So that bit where he ducks down and he looks under, and you're like, oh god, either she's going to like pop up there, or he's going to look up and she's going to pop up. So I was kind of sat there like, and then she just slowly crawls over, and I'm like, okay, that's the type of film this is going to be. Okay, so I liked that. It was creepy, but no jump scares, and that was good for me. But I think there are some really interesting shots in this film. I thought the special effects were, they were could have done with tweaking, but I especially liked the car that is on fire that they drive past. I thought that was interesting. I did quite enjoy the arcade scene as well, actually, where he's by himself. And she just slowly turns around and looks at him. I thought that was quite nice. But then I just found it weird. Again, I don't really understand how he leaves, and then that woman that he's supposed to be looking after is there, and she's like kind of going crazy about this whole loneliness thing and doesn't want to be alone. Like she's just on the street, like breaking things or something.
Yeah, but people break a lot in this film. They just like shove things over. It just sort of,
I'm just like, why is she just on the street by the arcade? Like, what's she? You know, what's the chances of that? But and like at the bottom of the stairs, when she acts as if she's trying to go somewhere, and she's like throwing all this stuff everywhere, but there's just a wall. So she's just so weird. I don't get it, but
it's too clever for me. I tell you what, there is an American remake, I think, called Pulse, and I'd like to watch it because it might make sense to me. So I might do that next week. Because I wouldn't have to do the reading bit either, would I? Do you know what I mean?
And the Americans will probably dumbed it down, I would have thought.
Dumbed it down a lot. I would have thought so.
Yeah, you can even watch it whilst washing up. So
I struggle to do anything. You know, when you're on your phone and you're doing stuff, and people are shouting, you know, and I've got to watch what's going on, otherwise it passes you by. Yeah, but it did pass me by anyway. Like if I missed a bit, if I missed 20 minutes, no, I've been watching it. So we rate this film.
Yes.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
Only because I didn't get it, Larry. And
fair enough.
Your explanation's not been good enough. Your version could have been a 7 or 8. You know what I'm like? There's 2 versions to most films, mine and yours. The one I watched, not so good, and you've not explained it as well as you normally do. So, all right, mate. 4 both ways, I think. So,
Jesus. Oh,
you know,
nice.
Sorry, Larry.
Yeah. No, cool.
It's a 4 from me. So yeah, I just don't get it. Just don't get it.
It's
no,
to be
it's
fair,
no Ring,
it's
no The Grudge. Is it?
Yeah,
It's
that's something I will agree though, because I feel like the film has an element where it could add some of that in, but I feel as though like the overall plot stops it from doing that. But then I don't know. It's tricky because it's I do agree. Like if it had some of that Grudge horror in there, I think it could be a more rounded film with a bit of both.
It was very
But
slow
then
as well. So
yeah, but then I feel like it's one of those tricky things where it's like I see what they're going for, and half of me is like they probably I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's something that they discussed of which kind of spirits, because there's like maybe one spirit that kind of does that where it like screams over somebody in one of the rooms, like shadowy or like that. But yeah, I mean for me I'd happily give it a 7, but that's because I personally enjoy it. I equally though do agree that it is slow. And it does require a bit more. But yeah, I personally give it a 7 because I think
interesting idea. It's a really interesting idea, but it makes no sense how they get. Do you know what I mean? I can't connect to how does that work?
Well, but yeah, I think the plus sides I think I'd give it are it's shot really well. I think that the ghosts are quite like experimental in what they're going for, which look very good, and I think the designs of them are good. I also do like the slow horror, and yeah, I like some of its pacing. I think that there are bits where it does some odd cuts where we'll see one character and then
amazing
another character.
Special effects. That's what I really liked about this. Cutting edge special effects.
Cutting edge special effects.
2001. Oh dear, listeners! I was showing a little GIF on screen of a guy that kind of flashes and disappears and comes back again, and it doesn't look amazing. But I know what Larry's talking about. There are some really good bits, actually, spooky bits in the shadows and things. Probably more than I saw, to be honest. So Ewan, what do you think?
Yeah, I was trying to decide between a 6 and a 7. I think I'd give it I think I'd give it a 6 just because I did enjoy it. I wasn't too bored throughout really. I did think it could have easily been an hour and a half, even with the sort of slow horror aspects. I think it would have been the same or even better if it was an hour and a half. And I also quite liked the because there's this thing now over the last few years of like Generation Doomer, where it's like about it's about the sort of latest generation, so sort of like millennial Gen Z sort of situation where they see like the future is essentially barren and hopeless and and stuff like that. So
when would you need to be born to be like Generation X?
Mid-90s, really. Sort of 90s, mid-90s. Because you
basically.
And yeah. And it reminded me of a film that came out a few years ago called She Dies Tomorrow, which is a film I didn't really like that much, but resonated with a few people, where it was about a sort of a kind of virus going round where people are just given depressing thoughts about the world. And this reminded me a lot of Pulse. Sorry, I forgot the name there for a second. Yeah, and it's quite interesting how again these elements are very foreshadow like topics and stuff that come out like 20 years after it was made. So in many ways it was very ahead of its time. I just think it's not as scary as it maybe wants to be. And I think again, as you said, The Grudge, Ringu, Ringu especially because it has that sort of recent technological aspect to it that sort of gels well with the horror. But then again, Pulse does a much better job than a lot of other internet-related horror movies that have come out in the last few years. Like
Fear.com
or Unfriended or stuff like that. So yeah, I would give it 6.
Great. Jess,
I'm also going to give it a 4 because I just feel like I found it too difficult to follow. I found it a bit jumpy. Like I couldn't really tell what the timeline was or was supposed to be. Like I don't mind watching films that go back and forth, but this just felt like, I don't know, too choppy. Yeah.
Wow, we're looking at like we're looking at 5 tonight. Oh,
Yes.
Well, one of your worst ones, Larry. But
It's like
Larry's getting slated
yeah,
tonight.
I was gonna say like I made it.
Well, I hope you didn't. You've been quite young, Larry. I would have thought. So they're 5, but it was all right. It was again. It's been on my watch list for a long, long time. It might have been this or the remake. I don't know. I know there's like at least 3 pulses that I've seen. So I presume there's the remake, or there must be 2 or 3 of those. So I've definitely seen it. So I'll get around to watching that at some point. Anyway, it's about that time to move on to Dan's hot pick. There we go.
I went the wrong way. I was there like, where am I going?
So I don't think Dan's here tonight. He's probably out cooking somewhere. So he gave us a film to watch, and it was called. Hang on, I'm doing very well here. It's called "Be My Cat," a film for Anne. Okay. This film was at times quite difficult to watch. So I think it's about 6 years old. Jess is just playing the trailer now for those on the podcast. So it was a guy, he's a Romanian, and he's making a film about meeting Anne Hathaway. And Anne Hathaway was in what films? Does anyone know? What's the famous one she was in?
Well, it's the Princess Diaries.
Princess Diaries.
Was she in a really famous big film? Dark Knight Rises.
She was Les Miserables.
Yeah.
She was in the We Crash TV series recently, which is very good.
In a film called Colossal.
Okay. So did you see that the lady on screen then looked a little bit like Anne Hathaway? Anyway, it's been a bit glitchy at the moment. So he wants this actress to play or be like Anne Hathaway, but he wants to turn her into a cat. And
totally normal behavior.
Yeah, it's all quite odd. There's some brutal scenes in it without being brutal, if you know what I mean, where it's some of there's a scene where it's covered by a sheet and there's blood splatters you can see and a girl screaming, and it is, yeah, you see it now, and it is very difficult to watch. But I really kind of didn't understand because he's kind of he's filming it and directing it, but also playing the character, like the main character, and who wants to turn this actress into a cat, and it's all very odd. And the thing is, I don't fully understand it, and that's why I'm struggling to explain it, because I've only watched it once. But there is a 5-minute scene in it that I found quite difficult to watch. There was a lot of what the hell is that? So there was a lot of screaming in it, and Larry, you need to watch this and we can talk about it again. And I'd like to know what Dan really thought about it, to be honest, because it was his hot pick. I just again, it's been a hard week this week. Look at him there, look.
Jesus,
that's after he's
popped up on the screen.
Yeah, so that's after he's drugged her and chloroformed her and then put a cat suit on. But the other girl, who was Anne Hathaway, I think he might have cut bits away from her because she was too big.
It sort
And
of
it's-
reminds me. There was a film that came out a few years ago. I haven't seen it, but it was like a documentary, a sort of mock documentary, but from the point of view of a serial killer. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
a bit
about-
like that.
So it's a bit like that, yeah.
I think I know the one you're talking about, actually.
A man bites dog or something. I haven't
yeah.
seen it.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because it is on YouTube, so you can go on YouTube and watch this. It's worth subscribing to the channel, actually, because there's loads of horror movies on there. And a mate is on Twitter as well, so I will try and maybe ask a few questions one day of him. See what else he's done since. It was just, it was interesting, and it's well done, and it's obviously knows what he's doing, and he's quite odd as well, but quite likable at first. So, yeah, that was Dan's hot pick, and I really want to know what he thinks about it. Anyway, Larry, watch it. It's not too long. You
I have
might
got
get-
the link. I've got the link.
Yeah,
I think.
it got good on. It's high 80s on Rotten. So
Okay.
it's okay. Not my kind of thing, but it's okay. Anyway, let's move on to what we watched this week.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Shall I go first? I've really not watched too much this week. I'm quite busy. So, Jess mentioned the Velocipasta the other day, and you sent the clip of the very first bit where there was a scene where there was meant to be a car on fire or something, and it was just like it was basically some graphics saying insert car on fire here, something like that. But it doesn't take itself too seriously, this film. It's very, very funny, and I really, really liked it. And I watched it on Tubi, so I got my VPN going again because they offered me 40 quid for the year. So I got the VPN going again. Tubi's got hundreds and hundreds of free films, and this was one of them. So a guy, he's a pastor or a vicar, whatever, a religious person, and he comes across this like dinosaur claw or something in some woods, and it kind of leaves an imprint on his hand, and then at times he becomes a Velocipasta, a very violent one, and he meets this girl here who's quite pretty and a prostitute. And there he's wearing her dress.
Sorry, I just saw the dinosaur.
So it's highly entertaining. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's really, really good. You know, the proper kung fu bits where he's holding the head, screaming at it, going, "Rah!" Like it's just loads of that, and it's not too long. And I would recommend anyone to watch it because it's so much fun. It really is fun. So that is on Tubi TV, I think. I couldn't find it in the UK. It's just great. So I would highly recommend it to you guys. Right up your street, Larry. I think you'd enjoy this. It's better than Swamp Ape, I think, as a film.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to be better. But it is. I'd love to speak to these people that made it because they'd probably make a second one because it's got legs. It's very,
Isn't there
very.
a scene though where a car's supposed to explode and there's no special effects? It literally just says insert special effects.
Yeah, that's right at the beginning. But that's what I really liked about it because it doesn't do that again in the film. So it was obviously a piss take from the very beginning. But the dinosaur doing karate and stuff and biting people when their arms are flying off, and then there's a bit where he bites someone's head, but you can see it's a bloody mannequin's head. Do you know what I mean? It's just all that kind of stuff, and it's so much fun. So yeah, would highly recommend. I'll give it 8 all day long. I loved it. So that's pretty much. Other than People Do Nothing. Do you know that series? You ever watched it yet? So there was a series about a pirate radio group of lads who I don't know if they're very good DJs or not. You and probably know.
Such a great have you watched the show?
I've watched all of them.
Yeah,
and they're very funny. And they play like it's like house music or whatever you call it. And they kind of rap. Is it grime music? I don't know. And they rap and they've got their own pirate radio and they're not that great, but they think they are. But one of their songs becomes a big kind of hit. I think it's in Japan. Or I think it's Japan. I think that's what the film's called, actually, something in Japan. And
Japan, I think.
Yeah. So they're invited to go over there and appear on this show, which is a bit like, you're running along and they're trying to hit you with poogle sticks and all this stuff and dunk you in water and that. And their songs it's being used. They want them on there. So it's just basically about their story. A few years after the last episode of the series was made, them going over there. And it is very entertaining. It's quite funny. They're all funny guys. And I'd highly recommend that. Have you ever seen the series, Jess?
No.
Series is really good. I haven't seen the film.
Yeah,
but the series is
really good. It was on Now TV, and I sat there and watched it. And yeah, it's rap. It is rapping is something else. To be honest, it's definitely what you get some Wally at a nightclub doing. So I enjoyed that. Yeah, and that is pretty much all of what I'm still making my way through Stephen King's revival book, which has taken me forever, as you can imagine. And that's pretty much all I've done this week. So yeah, that's it from me. So hopefully, I know Ewan's probably got a few. Larry, what have you been up to then? What you been watching?
The only two films, technically three, but Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman, but that I've seen that, it's really good. Then Super 8 by
Amazing.
J.J. Abrams, really good film.
And that's about a film about, what's it about?
It's about these kids who are trying to make a film, and they want to make kind of a zombie film to enter into a competition, and they end up filming at a train station to get some production value. And while they're filming at a train station, the train crashes and has something in it that gets unleashed upon the town. There are other key elements, but I think if people haven't seen it, they should definitely go watch it. It's really well shot. I think the acting's really good, and I think it's just like a fun time. So it was good to rewatch again.
I bought that a while ago. It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
It's one of the sort of earliest kind of 80s nostalgia movies that have come out, isn't it? So it predates Stranger Things and stuff like that.
I was going to say it has a very Stranger Things thing, but obviously I think Stranger Things probably watched stuff like this and thought, oh, there's some, like, you know, how do we rework this and take the elements that work and maybe change other bits. But yeah, it's really, really good. And yeah, found when I rewatched it, I was like, yeah, forget how good this is. And I think it's quite an emotional film as well. And then the other film I watched again, which is one of my favorite films, I love it to bits. It's happily a 10 out of 10 for me. Is Deja Vu with Denzel Washington. I love that film, directed by Tony Scott, who's made a bunch of films I love: Man on Fire, Unstoppable, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
A good film.
True Romance.
True Romance. He's just like, and the thing is, everyone's probably got their favorite. But for me, Deja Vu, I see this film as it's not, obviously, and I don't think it's intended to, but I love this film as it's on standalone, like you watch it by itself. But because I'm a big fan of Tenet, I love watching this film and seeing it as a almost little prequel to Tenet, because of, like, you know, you can mix and match of some of the story elements that
is it confusing or something?
No, it deals with very, very different. This deals with more time travel lore that are in most films. So, you know, like you travel back and, you know.
So this is a time travel film, is it?
It has elements. I don't really want to spoil it. If you've not seen it, I don't think I have then.
Yeah, I don't think I have then.
It has elements, but it's very much a film about, and basically there's a terrorist attack on a boat. and Denzel Washington's character is brought in, and they have this device which allows them to look 4 days into the past. They can only watch it once. So if they miss something while looking at 4 days in the past, they've missed it. So they have to solve this case of who's blown up this boat. But at the same time, there is another case of a woman who's washed up on shore, not related to the boat, but then also is. So it's about solving her case, but also solving the boat case. And it's really good. My explanation there was probably terrible. The back of the case will probably say something much better.
To be honest, Larry, you're having a real off night tonight. In all honesty,
mate. But yeah, no, I love it. I give it a solid 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And
what'd you watch that on? Was that on Prime? Or...
No, I have this film on Blu-ray. I have all of Tony Scott's films on Blu-ray. I think Tony Scott was such a great director, and sadly, obviously the tragic story of what happened is a bit sad, but he's made just such great films. And I think Denzel Washington continuously came back to work with him because I think they just have such a good rapport, and it makes it for some good filmmaking.
Wow. Cheers,
that was it.
Yeah. Do you want to go next, Jess? Did you actually watch anything?
See, I was really annoyed because I swear I watched something, and then I went back and was like, actually, it's because when I get home from work, I always sit and watch something. So I feel like I've watched lots, but it is just Friends.
Nice.
I watched as Friends or Young Sheldon because I'm on season 2 of that now.
I didn't realise, because Alex watches Young Sheldon, and it's very funny. But I didn't realise there's another program with him when he's older. Is that right?
What, you mean the Big Bang Theory?
So I've never seen that. So all I've ever seen is my son watching this Young Sheldon thing, and he goes, "Oh, there's a film where there's a program where he's older, Dad." And I was like, "Really? Yeah." So yeah, that's the only side of it I know, and I find that quite funny actually. It's just, I presume it's the same kind of humour then.
I think it's actually quite different, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah. I think because Young Sheldon's a lot newer, so I think they're a lot more careful about the way they go about things.
Oh, okay.
But they also in the Big Bang, a lot of people were really annoyed because of Sheldon's character is quite clearly autistic, and they don't ever actually discuss that, and the way that people treat him in the show, and now they're actually bringing up things to do with that in Young Sheldon, which I think is really, really good. But it's just very easy to watch, and that's what I need at the moment. Just so it is easy to watch. So watching Pulse, just no, out the window.
When did you watch it?
Saturday. Yeah.
So we need a nice simple film, Jess,
Something
for next week,
simple that my brain I don't need to think about.
Something simple.
Like Failure to Launch or something.
What's that?
It's a rom-com with Matthew McConaughey and I want to say Sarah Jessica Parker.
Can we do that on the Bones?
I don't think it's appropriate.
I still really think that we should do Old because from Larry's explanation of it, it sounds like a horror. So
I fucking hate that film so much.
It's so
we're gonna do
it's so bad. It's
I
just
want to
like
watch it, and then we could just sit and listen to Larry rant for another hour about how.
You're gonna make him watch it again. That's the film. Yeah. We should all watch it together. Like that would be have a party, just to make sure Larry has watched it again.
Mm-hmm.
So just steam like coming out like a kettle on my ears.
Yeah.
No, to be fair, I wouldn't mind watching it again, especially like if doing it like that. That would be quite funny. But Jesus, I wouldn't be quiet. I wouldn't be quiet through it. I'd just be like, shit.
Is it on Prime yet?
I think it is, you know. I think it is on Prime.
Probably.
Okay. Well, I've not got Netflix anymore. So my grandma's got rid of it. So there you go. I'm not paying for it. I think everyone's getting rid of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ewan, so what have you watched? Have you been to see anything at the cinema?
I'm trying to remember. I did go to see Gaspar Noé's new film, Vortex, which is
Foreign.
yeah, it's a French movie with weirdly with Dario Argento starring in the main
Really?
role, which is really odd. It's about a couple, an old couple in Paris, one of whom clearly has dementia, and in typical sort of Gaspar Noé style, it's very well, it's not as strange as his other films, but it's really dark and existential, and it's told in a really weird way. So it's told in sort of a split screen fashion so you got one side of the screen telling her story and the other side telling his story, like from sort of different perspectives. So it's a very sort of disorienting experience. There's about 2 hours 20, and you sort of, when the credits roll up, you feel like sort of a massive gut punch, because it's just about, essentially just ailing health and death and just all these things that you never really want to think about.
Not a happy watch then.
Not a happy watch, no. I would still recommend it, but it's depressing. But mainly I've been watching TV. So there's this new Steve Coogan and a sort of Channel 4 comedy drama written by Steve Coogan and Sarah Soleimani, sort of kind of like a Me Too series. So it's about this film that's being made, but the director's been criticized because it doesn't meet sort of Me Too standards, and it's a very sexual film. So they get the sort of new indie female director to try and take over reshoots and stuff like that. And it's a very interesting sorry, it's very interesting sort of dynamic, and it's a sort of, because you sort of see the kind of the nervousness of other people about what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and how sex should be portrayed on screen, and how it should be about sort of women being liberated rather than subjugated, and stuff like that. It's a really interesting, and it has a turning point sort of midway through. I think it's at the end of episode 3. I think there are 6 episodes where it really sort of turns, because you sort of treat it as a kind of mainly a comedy, but then the end of episode 3 it suddenly shifts into a drama, and it's a really interesting sort of way of dealing with these with these issues, especially with sort of Steve Coogan there, because Steve Coogan plays a kind of very old school sort of male producer who's very much of that sort of that sort of man's club, sort of over 60 kind of sort of situation, where he just makes sort of sexist jokes, and he used to have a wife who was about 25, and it's quite funny seeing him interact with this sort of very feminist indie director. So yeah, I've been quite enjoying that. I recommend it on Channel 4.
Okay.
I've also been watching I'm got to try and remember the full name, The Thief, His Wife, and the Canoe, which was on ITV fairly recently, and it's about the true story of a man who faked his death for the usual reasons, to like claim insurance to get the money for it. But he does it by going out in his canoe. It's like set in Hartlepool, and he pretends he dies whilst on a canoe visit. But it's a really interesting, it's a really weird story. About this sort of middle-aged couple who, by all accounts, are very, very normal, but they do this extraordinarily strange thing, and you as you watch the series, you suddenly feel very, very sorry for the wife, who is kind of emotionally manipulated by this guy into doing this thing. And even though she deserved to go to prison, for it, but you really feel sorry for her, because you can see she was coerced into doing it. It's funny because it's a 4-part series, and I watched the first 2 episodes, but I kind of put off the last 2, and but then I heard on this podcast that I listened to, I think it's the Pilot TV podcast, that Carl Pilkington stars in the last 2 episodes as a interrogating police officer.
That'd be amazing.
And it's very strange, because I've only seen him, and I think he has only starred in projects that either are done by him or done by Ricky Gervais and Steve Merchant. And so this is I think it's his first project that is just outside of that, and just going.
I'm gonna have to watch that now. But it's even more interesting.
But it's funny because he's not like being funny, Carl Pilkington, in any way. It's just he's playing a part, and that this is the part. And I think I heard this because like Chris Lang, who wrote it, really likes getting actors who can put like who are actually genuine. And I don't think you get more genuine in the acting business than Carl Pilkington, because I think I don't even think he could call himself an actor really, because he's just so sort of honest about himself, and he's a very, and it's weird because I've been following him since I was about 12. I don't mean in the stalkering sense. I mean in terms of like his career. I've been listening to his podcast since I was 12, and so I feel like I know everything about him. And that's the weird thing, because he's only a minor character in this, but because I know so much about him, it's so weird. It's like I know almost everything about this actor, even though he's only a very small part. It's very sort of bizarre, but it's a good series, and I recommend it. Also, I've been watching just a sort of like for relaxing, really. It's sort of there's this comedy drama on Apple TV Plus called Trying, which stars Rafe Spall. It's about a couple who live in Camden Lock in London, and they can't have children, and so they decide to go into adoption. And this whole series is about the process of adoption. It's a really quite a nice, wholesome sort of rom-com, sort of a 30-something rom-com, so it's sort of on the edge of like growing up almost. It's about the characters trying to make themselves grow up. And it's quite it's quite fun. It's interesting. It's funny. The only thing I don't like about it is because I think there's a slight American influence because of the sort of Apple TV Plus streaming services, that even though it's based in London, it seems to be sunny all of the time. And I'm just like, that's not what London nor Britain is. I mean, this is like what LA, sort of an LA version of London, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a very lovely show. So go watch it.
I have a question for you, Ewan. What did you think of the Northmen? I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw your thing up there. I saw your post.
Yeah. So the Northmen. It's a good film. It is a good film. It's quite interesting watching a film that isn't Lord of the Rings at the cinema, and it's a medieval epic, and it's a very it sort of errs more on the Game of Thrones side of things. So there's mud, there's sex, there's blood, there's like epic sort of fight scenes where you see Alexander Skarsgård just fully ripped and just like chewing people's necks off and stuff like that. And it sort of leans into a very sort of as per Eggers, sort of classic Eggers, leading into the genuine sort of Norse mythology of it all, and showing how Norse men would have been depicted in those mythologies, which we kind of shy away from nowadays because it's a bit sort of I don't know what you call it, but the interesting thing is that I wasn't a big fan of all the sort of hyper masculinity of it all, I guess, because it was just sort of it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of drunk guys at a pub who want to sort of like say, oh yeah, I could take that guy on, and or that kind of vibe. Or it's gym freaks, the people who sort of like pumping iron all day long and just kind of getting their muscles, oh yeah, look at me, just sort of looking at themselves in the mirror and stuff like that. It kind of gives off that vibe. And I kind of like, it's funny because you and I, Lawrence, have talked about Joker and about how you didn't like the film because of how certain audiences perceive Joker and how they go to the stairs and trying to imitate his sort of way. And it's funny because I at the time I sort of disagreed with you, saying that you should look at it not from someone else's perspective, from your perspective. But I did watch the Northmen thinking, oh, there's just going to be loads of sort of these hyper masculine alpha males just like taking so much like from it, and just like, oh, it just annoys me. But but it's still very good, and I still think Hollywood can learn so much from what Robert Eggers is doing. And I'm really curious because apparently this is not Eggers's final cut, so I'm quite curious to see if he brings out an extended version and see how that compares to this one. And that's the interesting thing about the sort of how he shoots is so unique to the point, and I love this in movies when you can never guess what the next shot is going to do, and I think that's extremely rare in movies where you just can't predict where the camera will move or what it's going to show or whatever, because that it inserts a great element of unpredictability to it that, again, for Hollywood is barely exists anymore. And I think once you come across it, it should be gripped tightly and taken advantage of. It's great, yeah, but I have a few problems with it. But yeah,
has it been a success at the box office or not?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's like
amazing, but
amazing. Yeah, it's not going to be. It's not like Marvel or anything, but it's done well.
I would have liked to go and see it, as long as there's no lighthouses in it.
No,
did you? Was it my correction that the thing that you preferred the lighthouse? Was that what you wrote?
Yes, because I've reevaluated my opinions recently because I watched The Witch and The Lighthouse again, and I deduced. Sorry, Kev, but I did deduce that I thought The Lighthouse was better.
Have you watched the other Lighthouse?
Oh
no,
watch that because it's better.
Okay,
right. It's a British version. It's very similar, isn't it, Larry? You must have seen it.
Yeah. That's the thing.
They're
like
very similar, aren't they?
Well, they're based on the same old folk tales, but
okay. Yeah. So
they're
it's
like,
better,
you know,
to be honest.
He's really going after you today, isn't he?
Anyway, what are we going to watch next week, Jess? I know you were talking about old, but I don't mind.
So I was trying to look through what's been on my watch list for ages on Netflix, and one thing that's been on there for ages is In the Tall Grass.
Oh,
I've heard that one.
Jesus Christ!
I see
Yes!
bad.
Oh,
But after that reaction from Larry, I'm going to say that's what we're watching next week.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
Fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it, so this will be great.
Yeah,
It does star.
King.
It stars. It does star that matey. I forget his name. Who was in Watchmen? He played.
Everything.
No, yeah, he's
I
in Aquaman.
Got mate for the Conjuring as well.
Conjuring,
Yeah.
I think I remember when it came out actually.
Yeah, and there's the little kid in it. You know, who's questionable.
That kid, I swear, is being cast in everything at the minute. I keep seeing his face everywhere about him getting cast into all these.
Oh, you have to let me know what it's because he probably has, but I can't remember him in anything else other than The Tall Grass. But
So The Tall Grass.
He was on Disney, I think.
Okay.
He was a Disney kid, but yeah, I keep seeing his face everywhere at the minute on like Instagram.
Oh, okay. Is this the small? Are we? Yeah. So he So he's the small kid, like he would have been a kid.
A kid.
Three kids.
It would have been a
three
kid.
Kid.
I don't know.
Right,
Yeah,
Dan sent me a message. His hot pick is The Last Matinee. He's put Uruguay / Argentina, 2020. Yeah, so I've got no idea again. You know, it's kind of been quite mutant blast to, you know, Be My Cat to more, you know, rigor mortis. He's picking some bangers. So hopefully this is a good one. So The Last Matinee. So what are we on tonight? It was episode 60. Was it 8? Wasn't it?
78.
78. So next week will be episode 79. In the Tall Grass, a favourite of Larry's. So, yeah.
Just everyone prep.
But it's a very short book that's been stretched to an hour and a half, hasn't it? What was it, about 50 pages? Yeah. Hardly anything. So, yeah, we'll be back next week. You want to follow us on Twitter? It's the Bones Horror Pod. Instagram's the Bones Horror Pod. You want to email us? The boneshorrorpod@gmail.com. No one's emailed me who wants a copy of The Evil Dead yet. Can you believe that? On Blu-ray.
It's Probably
So-
because on that podcast I feel bad, but it's like
It's the shit version.
Yeah, it's like literally it's the shit.
So if anyone wants a copy of the shit version of The Evil Dead, it's got 5
Place your
minutes
bets
missing and it
now.
actually makes sense. Give us a shout and I'll send it to you. I don't care where you are, you know, Sweden or America or Russia, wherever, I'll send it to you. Okay. So we will see you next. Well, soon enough, I expect. All right. See you later then.
Bye.
Boy.
Oh, hang on. Bye.